dance and movement. It would be a travesty if that just became less. It's a gift that keeps on giving. There's so much to explore. Creativity is a part of our evolution as humans. It's imperative that we remember we're creative beings. I feel like dance, in particular, because it involves the body, it helps you to explore these different things. And gosh, well, this fits for me. Creativity, it just opens up a whole window, a whole portal of self-expression, rather than us just becoming cookie cutter humans.
Hi, and welcome back to Creative Minds Shaping the Future. I'm your host, Emma Palastanga. I'm an educator, author, and now podcast producer, curious to discuss a range of views on creativity and curriculum. In Series 2, we explore creative expression and why it is important for all of us. Rachael Hall is a trained Royal Academy of Dance classical ballet teacher, master Matwork Pilates teacher, Franklin method educator, and biomechanics coach. At the age of 11, she attended the Royal Ballet School and received full-time professional classical ballet training, which she says taught her to be conscientious, strive for the impossible, and to push her limits. After graduating from the Royal Ballet School, she danced professionally with several companies, including the Royal Ballet, the Birmingham Royal Ballet, and Ballet im Aalto in Essen, Germany. In this episode, we discuss the beauty of dance and the wider lessons it can teach us. Rachael, I'm delighted to welcome you as my guest and learn more about your passion for dance and movement.
Oh, thank you for having me, Emma. It's a real pleasure to be here with you and to talk about this subject.
Why do you feel, Rachael, that creative expression is important in society, broadly speaking?
That's a good question. How long have you got?
We have an hour.
Gosh, and I feel like there's so many pieces to this question and this answer. So why do I feel it's important in society? What is strongest for me in this moment is that I feel really that creativity is who we are. We're not just, well, we probably are just productive beings at the moment, but we're not meant to be just productive beings. With this artificial intelligence, we're nature. We're nature, and nature is creative, and nature is abundant, and it is full of growth, and it's full of surprises, and it is productive, but in its own, in its own way. It's not. There's not a perpetual summer, and I feel that creativity and art forms, they remind us of that. They remind us of our integral place in this world. And I think it's very dangerous to forget that we are creative entities. And I think it's dangerous to think that we're just our accolades and our achievements and our status, and where we were born on the planet and our race and all of these divisions. I think art really brings us back to the essence that we are Mother Nature in human form. So I guess that's quite a big answer to that question. But I think, as far as humanity as a whole and the direction that we're heading in, I feel like it's imperative that we remember we're creative beings. And then I feel the microcosm of that to the individual child, to realize that, oh gosh, if I'm not good at maths or if I'm not good at spelling, it's really not the end of the world, because you're an incredible human and you are your Mother Nature in action, and there's something that you have that someone else doesn't have that's great at spellings and maths. But I think it gives us this scope to understand ourselves beyond just I guess how the Industrial Revolution has forced us into this way of being. It takes us back to, oh my gosh, we're one big human family and we're a creative essence. So yeah, there's a couple of big things there, isn't there?
I think that's brilliant, Rachael. the two words that came out for me were connection when you were talking, connecting to other human beings, and also the fact that we are human beings, not human doings. I'm not sure where that phrase came from, but I really like it. And when you were saying about
Mm.
the Industrial Revolution and accolades and work, and yeah, we can just be as well. And we don't do that enough in our lives, do we?
I don't think we do that enough. I don't think it's celebrated to do that enough. We're thought of as lazy, perhaps, if we do that. If we rest, if we take time. But I think it's only from the space that creativity can really come through. And I think it's really only from that space, again, that we can remember who we are and that beautiful interconnectedness of who we are. Is what I teach a lot with young young humans, but also, in my other work, where I work with adults, it takes a while to come back into body and to come out of mind and out into this doing and
Mm,
away from this sympathetic nervous system that we're in, this fight or flight,
mm,
where, I mean, that doesn't feel abundant to be there. We're never going to get everything done. We're never going to be as good as that person over there, that person, it's too much. But actually, when we come back to, oh, this is me and I'm just enough as I am. And what I realize is when you're you, no one else can be you, and that's so fabulous. No, the fact that we're having this unique conversation in this moment is a beautiful thing. It doesn't matter where you've come from, who you are, and that can be in every moment. And I think, coming back to the body, and I think that's also why, dance is so important because you use your body to dance. It's a really helpful reminder of that we're not just brains. Our body is a pre-verbal language. It's way older than as we were as we've learnt to speak. That's relatively new in
mm,
evolutionary terms.
mm.
I think the body holds the score, um, and it holds also a lot of wisdom and information that our very clever brains actually don't. This gut instinct that we have about things. Um, so yeah, wherever I can support people to come back into their bodies, I think there's so many answers there.
And I can speak personally and say you do that so well, Rachel, through your Pilates and the sound baths. It's a really powerful moment, and it can actually be really life-changing when you just take that moment to take stock and feel whatever you're feeling in that moment and be exactly as you are.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
to unplug from so much.
Mm.
And I know you and I, especially in the spaces, I suppose, that you've come into with me, where, emotions can flow. It's so important that those emotions do flow and that you have space and time to think, gosh, I've been living in this dynamic, or why did I even think that was important? To know who you are. I think coming back to the body, and that's where art can help you to come back to really who you are, in this interconnected whole, not who people think you should be or who you have learned that you are, but it's not really you. It helps you to really establish, wow, this is who I am.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you very much for that.
Mm.
So we talked a bit about dance. We danced around the subject of dance. So, how do you feel that dance, as one of those art forms, enriches us? And do you feel it deserves a higher profile in schools? And if so, why?
Mm. Definitely deserves a higher profile in schools
Mhm.
because, again, it's bringing back to the body. Do you know, I'm even noticing, especially with my youngest at the moment. So as we're recording this, we're in January, and it's dark, and she's not getting enough movement in the day, and that's really affecting how she's able to process emotions, how well she's sleeping or not. So even just from that perspective, actually, being in your body more rather than just sitting down and learning.
Mm,
All the ways that we currently learn in society in with a regular curriculum.
mhm,
So I think from that point of view, to be in your body, your intelligent body, moving things through, getting your heart rate going, I think children especially, they're designed to move. They're not designed
Mm.
to sit down. So I think from that point of view, I think it would do everyone a favor actually. Just, with the practicalities of, getting them to bed on time and things if they were moving their bodies more. I know that's not just dance, that's kind of across the board with body.
Yes.
But again, with creativity, it just opens up a whole window, a whole portal of self-expression rather than us just becoming cookie cutter humans that then come to, well, maybe late teenage years, 20s, 30s, 40s, midlife, where you have a crisis of identity. Actually, if I feel like dance in particular, because it involves the body, it helps you to explore these different things. And gosh, well, this fits for me.
Mm.
Oh, well, this doesn't fit for me. Oh, I love tap dancing, but actually the contemporary is great. Or gosh, ballet works for me because I love structure.
Yeah.
There's just so much there that young humans can explore. And for my two daughters especially, they're okay at maths and things, but they're fabulous dancers because that's our lineage
Hmm.
and not because I've done heaps with them. It's just natural for them to be movers, I suppose. They've been born with that rhythm. And if they didn't have that, I think their confidence would be very different. And moving into a world where they'd have to find their place, and find a job and find a role and, find an identity, it would be harder if they just had to fit into that cookie cutter mold that they don't actually fit into at all. So yes, I definitely think it deserves a bigger, higher priority in schools for that reason. What was the other part, the first part of the question?
How do you feel dance enriches us all?
Oh, well, I think it can be so joyful. I've started teaching, it's a movement class, but to music. What day is it? Tuesday mornings. And we smile the whole time. In my work, music is a big part anyway, but
Hmm.
oh, dancing to moving your body, just listening to upbeat music is fabulous, but moving your body to it, whether you feel that you've got rhythm or you're a dancer or not, as an adult, as a child, it's multi-sensory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think like it activates so much of us and activates so much of our brain. I mean, not just for children, but for adults to keep
Hmm.
Alzheimer's at bay. There's so much research that I don't have to hand now, but coordination, movement, self-expression, pace, timing, rhythm, all of these things, it's actually so important for our development, our the development of our brain. Yeah, I feel like it's a real joy in life. It's one of those beautiful joys like the sun shining or a delicious meal or time with a friend, going to an art gallery. It's dance and movement. It would be a travesty if that just became less. It's one of those things that it's a gift that keeps on giving because there's
Mm.
just so much to it. There's so much to explore.
And I think you're right when you talked about the fact that there are so many genres. We're talking about dance, but actually we could talk about ballroom and Latin dance. We could talk about ballet. We could, you referred to it earlier, but there really are so many genres. There's a dance out there for everybody. I know you tried your hand or feet, I should say, at flamenco as well. Are you still doing that?
I do. I'm on a flamenco weekend this weekend as well.
Oh,
Another thing that's just coming through now is it's culture, isn't it too? It's
yeah.
culture, it's history. It opens up our minds to other cultures. I try to go to Seville every year, with my daughters and with my mum actually.
Oh,
And just how lovely is that
yeah.
to go and immerse yourself in the food and the music and the culture of another country.
Yeah.
Um, I was lucky enough to go to Cuba for my 30th with my sister. So again, that's Latin. I do love all the Latins as well as the ballet. I love it all really. But I think also it helps us, it bridges cultures. In a way that if you don't speak a language, for me, would be more difficult to then learn Spanish or Italian or, I'd love to, but the language of the body comes more easily, and to be able to then go to a different country and a different culture and just, I don't look like I'm not a flamenco dancer, but I feel like it in the moment, and
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. So I think that's another way that it's the interconnectedness again, isn't it? An appreciation for, Bollywood all these different forms of dance. It's just a real appreciation, yeah, that bridges any differences.
Yeah, I think that's really profound, actually, the cultural connections and the language of dance, over and above the language of words, if you like. How has dance, Rachel, had an impact on your own life?
Oh, I feel like I could cry with that question, actually. Well, it is my life, really. Um, it is my life. My mum always danced, and she didn't come from a family that danced. You know, it was a very natural thing that just came through her body to be a dancer. She didn't dance professionally, but I mean, even now in her mid 60s, she's the most fabulous tap dancer, mum. She honestly, she's amazing. Um, and she dances about 3 times a week. She goes to a contemporary class, she goes to a ballet class, she does tap once or twice a week.
Yeah.
She's fab. So it's always been in my life. We've always had music at home, all sorts of different music too, different genres. And then from the age of 18 months, I went to, I mean, dance lessons, where you're just running around with ribbons and things like that, skipping and running and singing. And so it's always been in my life. And it wasn't I didn't mean to go to the Royal Ballet School. It just kind of happened. It wasn't really on the radar until my dance teacher at the time, because I just went to a local dance school, loved it, had an aptitude for it. Didn't know what the Royal Ballet School was, until she said, I think Rachel should audition. And then I flew through the auditions because I had zero pressure on me. I think had I had the pressure on me, perhaps I wouldn't have flown through them, but I didn't really know what it was about. I just went there and I just danced my socks off. Because for me, I suppose dance it was this creative expression. It's different when you become a professional. Sometimes that can be dampened down, with all the pressure. And maybe this is anything that you take into work with the external pressures that are put on you to exist in that world. It's different, feels different for me now because I teach dance, I teach lots of workshops in various places, dance workshops, and I can do it on my terms now, which is so fabulous. But when you're at school in an institution or you're working in an institution, um, that's not always the case unless you're, you know, the very, 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 very creme de la creme de la creme. So yes, so kind of backtracking, yeah, it's always been in my life. And I think when I stopped dancing, it was a real heartbreak. I think that was my first heartbreak, stopping dancing, because I had to find a new identity. That was, yeah, it was a real, real challenge. I stopped through injury, but also through, I think it was a bit of disillusion, actually. And I've never spoken about this before. I always just pin it on the injury, but it was also, I don't know where I fit in this world. I have to sell part of my soul to fit into this world. And I didn't get into this world for that. I got into this world because of the passion and the creativity.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But still, it's been a heartbreak, and then it's continued to be a journey because then I found my way back to it. And now my biggest passion is working with humans all across all ages and backgrounds. And I love also working with young dancers, and supporting them, especially if they are in an institution or want to be, they want to be in a ballet school or a dance company, but how they can exist in that, but still exist in themselves and not lose themselves in those environments, that they can really have a discernment of what feels right for them, their boundaries, etc. So I suppose it's always been in my life. It always will be. Now it's so lovely to have such a joy for dance. I don't go to ballet classes, which is people are often really interested in that. I think it's because I was such a high level and my body doesn't move in the way that it used to, so it's a bit stressful. you know, I'm quite a kind person to myself. I actually don't put myself down. I suppose, I don't know if that was early 20s, I started to rewrite that whole way of being.
Hmm.
And it's difficult to not put myself down if I'm in a ballet class. Like, I won't go there. I'll do flamenco, or I'll do street dance, or I'll do tap, something that I still have a flair for, but also that I'm not striving to be a professional at that. It's just that pure creativity. And I think that's an interesting point too, isn't it? You know, when you decide for something to become your work and you need to earn money from it and you need to please other people, it's different to just that innate creativity that it doesn't matter at all what other people think, it's just for your own enjoyment.
Yes, and it's interesting you say that because it's reminding me of conversations I've had with Chloe Clayton, a musician, and I'm pretty sure Paula Briggs mentioned along these lines as well that the freedom she has now is greater, I think. With age, we become wiser and decide, like you say, what's for us rather than what's for other people. So applying it to our own lives and doing it for the intrinsic joy rather than any other purpose, I think is really powerful to enhance that creativity. I'm not saying it's not there at all if you're working for an institution, but you are bound by their parameters rather than your own. Very
Yeah,
much like musicians wanting their own record label because
yeah.
they want to have that control. Sorry, Rachel.
No, I was thinking, I was trying not to lose my train of thought with what you just said. I was thinking that is also why I think it's so important for young people because otherwise you're always on t someone else's time frame as well, aren't you? As
Mm.
opposed to like the time frame of nature, it just comes in its own time. The insight hits in its own time. Oh, I don't know what this next moment is going to be in this creative process. Oh, and then it hits. You know,
Mm.
just to be in that collaborative dance with, you know, dance, quote unquote, dance, that collaborative dialogue with the creative process. For children in particular to have their brains exposed to that. So it's not just I do this, I finish that. No, no, no. You know, it's an open-ended endeavor. I'm just coloring for coloring's sake. It doesn't need to look beautiful. You know, no, I don't need to care about what somebody else thinks about this thing that I'm drawing or thing that I'm, you know, and I think that's really lovely in a world where we're so concerned with what other people think and how we look and all of those things to just have some creative endeavors that are just literally just for the joy of doing it. No one's going to see it. You know, how beautiful. That's kind of coming back to what you said about I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being.
Mm. And also links to my one of my favorite phrases within this, which is process over product. So
Mm.
it's not about, and I often think of it as a painting or a drawing. It's not about the finished article or a sculpture. It's not about the finished article, but you could apply that to dance as well. It's not about the finished, beautiful dance that's absolutely everything precise and footsteps where they should be and the fingers outstretched. It's the process of creating, of putting something together that actually feels really good in your body. I
Yeah.
remember the frustrations actually. It was a routine I learned. I used to do ballroom and Latin American dance. And I remember learning the steps and being so frustrated with my body that it wouldn't do what I wanted it to do and trying to remember the steps in the logical order. But when you put it together, I wasn't entering competitions. It was just for me. But when I put it together and it flowed, I was in a different space altogether. And I'm sure as a fellow dancer, you can truly appreciate how that feels.
Yeah.
Just that space of being.
That flow state
Yeah.
and also the process. So, you know, there's the aspect of creativity, no one's going to watch, etc. Beautiful. And also that aspect of the art forms that are more public facing, um, the hard work that has to go into that, you know, the absolute discipline, the tenacity, the self-belief, the teamwork, the mindset, you know, all of those things. I mean, I am so resilient, almost to a fault, is what I'm learning recently, actually.
Mhm.
But it teaches you, you know, resilience and seeing something through from the beginning to the end if you're taking exams or if you're putting on a production. Um, so I think there's something to be said for that too. You know, you going through that challenge of I can't get these steps, I can't get it, I can't get it. Oh, I've got it. I've actually got it. And then you move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's part of it too. And especially when it's something that you love. If it's something that you have, a love for, you're more likely to put that work in. For me, I do have a love for music, but I don't have a natural aptitude for picking up an instrument, which is such a shame. Maybe in later on in this life, I'll lean into something like that. But it's trickier for me to be so, I don't know, focused and to push myself with that. But because I love the music and the whole idea of it and the feel of it, yeah, for me, it's a way for me to push myself also.
And I think we go back to what you were saying about your children and thinking about children in school. If we're not offering dance in school, we're excluding the
Mm,
joy for those children and that feeling of belonging for those children. And again, so many of my guests on this series have talked about how they struggled in school, how they felt they didn't fit in. Were it not for their subject, they would have had a very unhappy time at school. So I think
mm,
it's really crucial that we do embrace dance for all of those reasons. And also, like you said,
yeah.
the some people call them softer skills. I call them essential skills that things like dance and drama and music teach us. And as you know, you've referred to them yourself, the resilience being one of them.
Yeah, one of the words that you said, it's exclusion, actually.
Mhm.
I think it's very unfair to just have an educational system that is based more on that. I don't know what the word is for it, but just
Academic subjects, I
that's the
guess.
word. Yeah,
Yeah.
academic subjects. It does really exclude. And again, I can't point to the research, but really, I think we're more productive, we're more insightful, we can access a different part of our brain
Mm.
when we're in a flow state. And that, I mean, maybe for some people that does come by just pushing, pushing, pushing. But I think for most humans, it doesn't. It comes perhaps from being, well, more present. Just, it's like Einstein said, you can't, this isn't word for word, but there's a quote, you can't change, what's the quote? You can't change the reality with the same mind that created it. You have to see something a different way to be able to change it.
Mm.
For me, if we don't have this creative part of ourselves, we are just on a loop.
Yeah.
We're not evolving. I feel like creativity is a part of our evolution as humans, not just this, industrial revolution, or artificial intelligence revolution, but as this is our this is our future and this is our future gift to humanity. I was also considering looking back through time when you think of how art has influenced us as
Mm.
humans, just in the art that we have access to, whether that's music over time, Mozart, Tchaikovsky,
Mm.
popular music, etc., sculptures, paintings, dance. It's culture again, isn't it? It's culture
Yeah.
of different countries, but also of humans. It's our lineage, it's
Mm.
our heritage, and I think that's really key. That it is our heritage. It's so that should be taught. That I mean, that is academia too, isn't it? This
Yeah.
is a part of our heritage. Being creative beings is it's a part of us. It's not just a little add-on extra thing on the side, just oh fluffy, fluffy, let them go and do a little bit of that for half an hour. I feel like it's back to front.
One thing I will say is that I really, in my book, promote a broad and balanced education. And I think most educators would agree with that. The pressure from assessments and um, outside agencies, sometimes schools feel the pressure to get the knowledge in. And there's been talk of a knowledge-based curriculum as well over time. But actually, more recently, the art subjects are being celebrated. And in the recent curriculum and assessment review, the statement that gave me such hope was, and I'll quote it, the art subjects are an entitlement rather than an optional extra. And
Love
we're going to
that.
have a new National Centre for Arts and Music Education. So I think that's really, really exciting. I
That
think
is.
things are changing, and I believe creativity is back on the menu.
Well, I hope so. And I think, with the rise of AI taking over more of those, the other jobs,
Mm.
hopefully it will free us up to be more creative. I remember, I don't know if this feels related, but when I was at school, but with anatomy and physiology, I'd remember the odd little thing, but as soon as I did it in a somatic way, in a way that involved my body, I can't get over my knowledge of anatomy and physiology. And I don't think it would have been a natural. I didn't learn it just by looking at it in a textbook. I learnt that by feeling it. And once I'd felt it in my body, it will never go. So I think, not to underestimate how it doesn't even need to be just dance, but coming back into the body, back into that somatic sensory world.
Mm.
We have so much intelligence, so many neurons in our gut, in our spinal cord, all over in our heart, not just in our brain. you
Yeah.
know so I think, yeah, that there's a deeper, wiser intelligence that it would be dangerous to lose
Yeah.
if we just stayed with the academia. So that sounds really encouraging that it is an entitlement. It is an important part of who we are.
Absolutely. So let's hope that we see that coming through in the new national curriculum. And of course, that's not all schools have to offer. They can offer things outside of that. But if it's embedded in the national curriculum, it's more likely to happen, I think. Rachel Hall, what's next for you?
Ooh, um, my business is called Aligned.
Hmm.
So to continue to work with that word and to keep checking in with myself. So it's not just a physical alignment, but I'm realizing how important the alignment of our energetics are,
Hmm.
where we might have emotional or energetic leaks, when we're existing in dynamics that don't serve us. And I feel like that's also a part of evolution. And you and I have spoken just briefly about this, but actually, it's not always easy to make changes in our life, but it's a part of our evolution. So
Mm.
again, for me, that's coming back into my body telling me, oh, this doesn't feel aligned, or this work schedule doesn't feel aligned, or wow, that feels aligned. I'm doing that. So I suppose for me, it's continuing to become more and more aligned in my energetics as a parent, in my working life, and to really spread that message, to dancers, to young people, to people of all ages. It's interesting when I've done a bit of marketing work in the past and they say, who's your customer avatar? What is your, I have no idea because I can work with anyone. I've got people in their 90s that I teach every week and then, 6-year-olds too. I think just this message of you are so incredible, you are miraculous, you have so much wisdom and intelligence in your body,
Mm.
and just supporting people in all the ways, with the sound and the vibration that you've been coming along to,
Yeah.
with just the understanding of the mechanics of their body, supporting people to come into deep rest and into that parasympathetic zone. And just, I guess, ultimately to really trust and to look after our precious bodies. What's been coming through for me recently is it's so important that we protect our own peace and we are in alignment with ourselves because that is the macrocosm of humanity. It has to start with us coming into
Hmm.
this peace and this self-love. So I guess that's what's next. I've got a few exciting things lined up, workshops. I'm teaching at the Opera House, Royal Opera House again in April, I think it is. Um,
Wow.
yeah, which is lovely. And talks about working with some beautiful vocational dance schools as well, talking about mindset and how to support them with nerves and to learn more about their nervous system and how to really protect themselves, especially when they're under high pressure, with these real high achieving students. So, yeah, I guess that's what's on the menu for me at the
Mm.
moment.
Brilliant. It all sounds very exciting, Rachel. Thank you very much, Rachel. We're sort of coming to the conclusion of our discussion. It's been really fascinating to speak to you. Thank you. I think to try and summarize, some of the things that stood out for me were that we need to try and avoid cookie cutter humans, being human beings, not human doings, and having the confidence just to be you, whoever you are. We've talked about the fact that dance is a form of communication and that it bridges cultures and it's more about process over product, that so many essential skills like resilience, tenacity, and teamwork can be learnt through something as joyous as dance.
Yeah, I think
Oh.
that's just, yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. I love this conversation. Yeah, more of these conversations.
I hope Rachel's episode has provoked thought about how we can avoid being cookie cutter humans through the expressive art of dance. Next time, I speak with Professor Adele Diamond, the Canada Research Chair, Pioneer, and Professor of Developmental Cognitive Neuroscience. Here she is with a few words.
Creativity, curiosity, self-confidence, excitement about learning, being able to think critically. All of these are critical skills that I think schools should be developing and can be developing. And they're also what corporations keep telling us they need. They don't need people who can just rattle off facts. Any experience you have, anything you learn changes the brain. So the brain is plastic, neuroplasticity, and it's always affected by experience. Our cultures, both yours and mine, have this notion that if you're really enjoying yourself, you're playing and you're not working. And we need to get past that, that real work can be joyful. And when you're enjoying it, you're doing better work. Serious learning can happen in a joyful way, and it's more effective.
If you're following this podcast from the start, I hope you've enjoyed listening to Series 1. If you're a new listener, welcome and thank you for joining us. In Series 1, we asked, does creativity have a place in education? In Series 2, we explore creative expression and why it is important for us all. In this series, I speak to painters, sculptors, musicians and dancers, to name a few creative disciplines. I already have more fantastic guests lined up for Series 3 and 4, where I'll be talking with inspiring individuals with a range of experience. If this sounds like you, maybe you have a view on creative thinking or creative expression, please get in touch by following me at ACPC4A, the number 4, on X, or Emma Palastanger on LinkedIn to connect. There are many ways you can support the show for free, and it's much appreciated. Share with your contacts, rate the show, or leave a review. If you like, you can buy me a virtual coffee to help with the costs of the podcast platform. Please follow this podcast so that you can stay up to date on the release of each episode. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Creative Minds Shaping the Future.